from thoughts of fear that a person is miserly. A person fears loss, or they fear being without, and therefore they hoard what they possess, whether that be wealth or money. They hoard in order to, as they hoard that so as to not be in loss. So courage helps us develop generosity. And from generosity, we also are able to develop honesty. Because when we develop, the nature of dishonesty is that we fear the consequences of being honest. We fear the consequences of telling the truth in a particular situation. And so we will lie in that situation because we're scared of the outcome. We're scared to face the truth of that. And even within our own selves, we're self-deceptive a lot of the times because we fear the truth of that. So the nafs has this way of deceiving itself in order so that it can feel good about itself. So courage leads to generosity, which can lead to honesty, and it can lead to sincerity, because this type of courage allows us to have true ikhlas. And ikhlas, as we mentioned before, is a state of being, of sincerity, which is an emptiness of all other things, an emptiness of everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an emptiness from the ego mind, an emptiness from the egos of others. And when we attain sincerity, that's where we can attain true authenticity, because then we can authentically be who we are without trying to take somebody else's role, without being implicated by the thoughts of other people. So fasting is a beautiful thing, because fasting allows us and assists us. And obviously this is when we take fasting beyond the fast of just the GI tract of the stomach, and the physical fast of staying away from food and drink and having intimate relationships or intimate conjugal relationships. This is a fast which excels beyond this. This is the fast which is of the spirit. So it allows us to go through the state of takhliya, then to evolve from that to the state of tahliya. So you can see that fasting allows us to, and helps us and assists us to develop courage, and it allows us and assists us to develop generosity, and from there allows and assists us to develop honesty, and from that it also allows us and assists us to develop sincerity, and from that it also allows us and assists us to develop authenticity. All of this, therefore, can be summarized in emptiness and detachment. So the keys to all virtues can be summarized in this. The keys to all virtues can be summarized and achieved through the act of fasting. Now, when we have courage, courage is the balanced quality between foolhardiness and cowardice. And so when we have courage, we're able to bring around this equilibrium within ourselves, this state of balance between being scared or being a coward and being foolhardy, acting foolhardily. So this balance is a state of internal justice within. It's an internal equilibrium or state within the human being, within the inner kingdom of man. And justice allows us to, or leads us to being fair, and it leads us to equity. And it also allows us to attain a sense of clemency and kindness and generosity, because when we are just within ourselves, we are also fair to others, and therefore also are allowed to be afford to be kind and generous to them, and understanding. When we attain this state of equilibrium, which is i'tidal of the qiwa of the nafs, this also comes in, hones in with the hadith of Imam Ali, which I'll mention in just a minute. When we have this balance of all the faculties or the facets within the soul of man, and we are made up of the faculty of anger and the faculty of desire for food and drink and mating, and the imaginative faculty and the intellect. When we bring i'tidal to these qiwa, to these powers within the human being, then we are able to overcome the faculty of anger. Because anger, when it's overruled within us, it causes rage. And when there is a lack of the power of anger within us, we also allow for injustices to be done, because anger is there to bring a balance. So when we see wrongness being done in the world, we can fight against that. So people can take us for a ride if we don't have anger. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to us, so that we can protect ourselves and preserve ourselves and stand up for our rights. So if we don't have anger, anyone can come and do injustice and wrongness to our family, and we would never protect them, because we don't have the faculty of anger within us, which will cause us to do this. So anger serves us in this particular way, but it has to be in a balanced sense. And all of these have to be under the auspices of the intellect. And this is a discussion which, inshallah, we'll look at in more detail in the future. So we are able to bring about this balance internally within ourselves of these various faculties, which include the faculty of anger, and it also includes the faculty of desire for food and drink and mating with the opposite gender. When we attain this i'tidal, this balance, or this equilibrium internally within ourselves, we are also able to attain al-'iffa, which is chastity. And we have in hadith with regards to chastity itself, because our desires for having relationship with the opposite gender does not overcome us, or the shahwat don't overrule us. In hadith we have that the person who has iffa is greater in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a martyr on the battlefield, a shaheed. Why? Because the shaheed on the battlefield is doing the jihad al-asghar. He's doing the minor jihad, or she is doing the minor jihad on the battlefield. But to attain true iffa, which is the balance, bringing about balance of the qiwa of man, the powers within the human soul, we are doing the greater struggle, the jihad al-akbar. And so when we develop this, we develop and refine our faculty of anger, we develop strength. And when we develop these, it means that we also develop the ability to put everything in its place. So we know how to apply anger in its correct situation. And anger does not overrule us. We know how to apply iffa and chastity in its correct circumstance and situation. So where there is a legal permissibility for a person to engage the desires or for the opposite gender, then they will apply it. But where it is not permissible for them to do that, they will control that faculty and therefore attain a level or degree of chastity. And so when you bring about this balance within yourself and this equilibrium, you attain a sense or a degree of wisdom. Because wisdom is وَضْعُ الْأَشْيَاءِ فِي مَوْضِعِهِ. It is placing everything in its correct place. So you are attaining this internally within your own kingdom, within your own self. And so we develop, obviously wisdom is also developed internally through finding applications of this equilibrium and applying it through thought and through reflection. So coming to this hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, Al-Fadailu arba'atu ajnas, that the virtues are four categories. Ahadahum al-hikmah, the first of them is al-hikmah, or one of them is wisdom. وَقِوَامَهَا فِي الْفِكْرَةِ, and it is attained through thought. Then he says the second, الثاني العفة, chastity. وَقِوَامَهَا فِي الشَّهْوَةِ, and it is established. The qiwam of something is the thing that it stands upon, the pillar that it stands upon. قِوَامَهَا فِي الشَّهْوَةِ, and it, iffa, chastity and modesty, is attained through refining the shahwat, the desires of the soul. الثالث, the third Imam says, is al-quwwah. The third of the fada'il, of the virtues, is power or strength. And it is attained, وَقِوَامَهَا فِي الْغَضَبِ, it is attained through refining the faculty of anger. وَالرَّابِعِ, and the fourth, the Imam says, al-adl, is justice. وَقِوَامَهَا فِي اعْتِدَالِ قِوَى النَّفْسِ, and it is established through bringing about balance and equilibrium of the powers or the faculties of the nafs, which we mentioned before. So you can see that how these link with each other, that through bringing inner equilibrium and justice and balance within ourselves, through bringing this i'tidal internally, we can attain true power, which is the second of the fada'il, the second of the virtuous character traits. And then the third leads to the third, which is al-iffa, which is chastity and modesty, which then also allows us and leads us to al-hikmah, which is wisdom. So fasting, as you can see, if we bring this picture to its completion, fasting helps us to develop our character in this way. And we know that in our hadith that أثقل شيء في الميزان is al-akhlaq. أثقل شيء في يوم القيامة في الميزان في يوم القيامة is the character traits. The most weighty of things on the day of judgment are the virtues, are your characteristics. So more weighty than our actions and our ibadah and our salah and our recitation of the Holy Quran and our ziyarah, more weighty than any of this is our akhlaq and our character. And the Prophet ﷺ says, or said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I was sent to you to perfect your character. And we can see how this hones in onto this, how the Sharia falls into within this. That the Prophet says, my sole purpose, my message, and the reason that I was sent to you was to perfect your character. And everything else, therefore, is the backdrop to this. So the laws and the ahkam and the Sharia is, in essence, it is the backdrop of akhlaq. And we see how ahkam, in this particular situation, fasting itself develops our character. So similarly, there are other elements of worship that help and assist us to develop our character. So to bring this full circle, fasting helps and assists us to develop our character, and namely it helps to develop courage, because we go through a state of becoming detached, and that detachment is removing ourselves of everybody else's opinions and thoughts and ideas and the ego mind of others, and also our own ego mind. And it also allows and assists us to develop generosity, which also leads us to develop honesty, which also then leads us to develop truthfulness, which also then leads us to develop sincerity, which also then leads us to develop authenticity, which also then leads us to develop justice, which also then leads us to develop strength, which also then leads us to develop iffa or chastity, which then leads us to develop the highest rank, which is al-hikmah, wisdom.